Okay, welcome back then. We are in late January 1862, which is exactly where we left off. And yeah, it's war o'clock. Time to get our war on. And a quick run through of kind of really the last turn there. We've conducted a counter-offensive, an offensive into eastern Bulgaria, using really the kind of rollback at Salonika and then the defeat of the Austrians at Adrianople as a springboard. Destroying large parts of the Austrian force, but much of it slips through into Bucharest. It looks like they have a fairly robust replacement system, a good strategic reserve. They've managed to quickly fill up the ranks of these regiments that are at part strength, and looks like probably combined that with some reserves they had at Bucharest. We're now positioned. We had initially cleared everything south of the Danube, but the Austrians themselves are now conducting a counter-offensive with one of their army corps. In fact, it looks like a couple of corps pushed south and besieging Plevna. So in the east now the situation is static. We're besieging Constanza, they're besieging Plevna, but we see of course a significant Austrian reserve now north of the Danube. In the west, Omar Pasha conducted an offensive to lift the second siege of Salonika. This was successful. He followed this up by pursuing the force into Skopje, defeated the force under Francis Joseph Gulli. He fell back, but in turn he was then attacked by Edward von Clam-Gallas in what was a significant engagement, resulting in a destruction of nearly half of the Austrian command. They outnumbered him 2-1, and it was, you know, almost a kind of nostalgia, really, of sort of vintage Omar Pasha stuff from the Crimean War, the first war against Russia, just pretty much him acting independently, laying waste to forces much larger than his own. So, vintage sort of Omar Pasha stuff, and we are well positioned, even though he also sustained casualties. Not nearly as many. We probably took in total about 20,000 casualties, whereas we inflicted on the Austrians, not the tally is about 70 to 75,000 casualties. At a guess, it's about 25,000 per engagement, and there were 3 kind of engagements at Skopje. So he's conducting independent action in the west. He's well placed to do that. There's no evidence of any large Austrian reserves here. We've got good intelligence from sort of the Bosnian area, so we've got a rough idea of what the Austrians are about here. So I think he's kind of okay. Now he's really reduced Clam-Gallas' force. He doesn't yet have force parity, but he's sort of well placed to conduct further offensive actions there for the time being. He did lose one of his junior commanders, 2-star Lieutenant General, replaced by his son of the same name, who has been recruited in Constantinople and is now heading to take over one of the army corps under the command of Omar Pasha. We have dispatched, landed, and we're now concentrating an expeditionary force in the Sinai under the command of Mehmed Ali Pasha, with a view to intervene in Egypt. We're not there yet. We want to make sure that we do it with all of the kind of tools in the box needed to deal with that situation. The next thing we're going to be sending, once we get the transport fleet back in Constantinople, give them probably a fortnight also to reorganize. One of the downsides of sort of Age of Sail ships, of course, is they do become sort of a bit shabby after long journeys, especially in difficult weather. We've got some service asset units to bring south, plus a cavalry division, so we won't do it this turn. Next turn we'll transport them on rails. There's no point using rail points if we don't have to. It's always good to keep rail points open. That allows with the movement of supplies and this sort of thing. So next turn we'll move these forces into Constantinople, preparing them for embarkation. Now, I didn't check on this before, but Abdi Pasha's force is now fully operational. Further to that, we have a cavalry division, which we can add to his command, and he's now good to go, and I think we're going to bring him north. The more forces we have really kind of surrounding the kind of Plevna Bulge, if you like, the better. So we're going to set him to... Well, let's move him north first of all. The Imperial Guard is under Namik Pasha, and then we've got 2 independent corps, one of which is a conscript. We switched that out from Rita Pasha's 5th Army in order to kind of, you know, dilute the inexperience, the greenness of at least 1/5 of our army. So yeah, that force is good to go. We'll set it to a defensive posture, which we'll set it to hold at all costs. And we'll set Rita Pasha to hold at all costs as well. He's going to be there in 11 days. Now, we had a really wet summer last year, quite a mild winter up until now. I mean, we are really in midwinter now, but we've noticed the weather has really turned. We didn't snowfall. It suddenly turned a lot colder and a lot wetter. That will impact the tempo of operations, of course, and how far we can move. I mean, it's going to take Abdi Pasha, 11 days. It's like a week and a half to march from Adrianople to Rumelia in quite heavy rain. So this ground is presumably quagmire. We're going to play it quite cautious here. So we're going to keep Abdul Karim Nadir set to kind of a conventional defence, out on a bit of a limb besieging Constanta in case the Austrians decide to make a really, really committed attempt to lift the siege at Constanta. We don't want Hussein Abdi's force being completely annihilated or to receive more casualties than are necessary. He can be supported by Abdul Karim Nadir. What we're going to do is we're going to set him to defend and retreat, which is to say that after 3 rounds of combat, unless he's winning, bear in mind he's going to be attacked across a river, so there's a good chance that will happen. He will automatically look to disengage. So we're going to play it cautious. If they don't move on Constanta, then maybe they just want to build up concentration in Plevna. That's fine. That gives us time to get our house in order. And the longer the siege goes on in Constanta, the better. Eventually we'll kind of damage the structure, and at some point we will be in a position to assault that fortress. Not yet, however. I mean, Hussein Abdi's got a command of 83,000. He is awaiting replacements for some of his forces. The garrison the Austrians have got inside Constanta is 44,000. Half of his force, but inside a fortress. So that's the crucial kind of difference. That's pretty much it for the European theatre. We've got the main kind of fleet heading to conduct kind of counter-raiding operations, really, in the Mediterranean trade box. And, we've got the transports heading back to Constantinople. That's pretty much an appraisal of our sort of twin theatre conflicts, really. One sort of concern is the supply issues that we're having in North Africa. I'm going to move this... Let's have a look. We'll keep the division there for the time being, but yeah, supplies are becoming a bit of a problem. I think it might be blockaded. That's why. That means the Austrians must have ships here. It's clear the water's off of, or maybe not the Austrians, maybe the Egyptians. Let's make sure the waters are clear off of Tobruk, and then we'll get them to the trade box. It's a landwear division. I wonder what they're doing with that. Well, we'll fall off that bridge when we come to it. So I don't know if that division... what do I do here? Okay, let's go around the houses a bit. 1 day, 5 days, 9 days. There we go. See if we can't kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The hope is if they move down, we'll be able to engage them. If these are transporting around, maybe for some landing at Salonika, maybe to try and create some sort of diversionary sort of landing or something like that. You remember in the First War with Russia, they started doing that quite a lot at the end, landing forces in northern Anatolia and such. So yeah, Abdi Pasha's good. Now we do have really a few volunteer corps. We'll keep them in Adrianople for the time being. But yeah, food for thought that. And we've got another one being constructed. I mean, we've probably got a force of nearly 150,000 men now, comprised of volunteers, comprised of various ethnic groups that comprise, and even some Germans, that comprise the Austrian Empire. Yeah, Italians, Romanians. I'm sure we had a Romanian corps somewhere, probably in, not Romanian, Polish. Yeah, I got a Polish reserve volunteer corps. So yeah, we've got a sizable number now of kind of sort of volunteers fighting for us, and that's welcome and within the realms of possibility, I suppose. Yeah, in the south we had a bit of an upset. Now, despite the fact that we have protectorate status, you kind of wouldn't know it. I get the impression that the Yemenis have thrown everything into forced concentration around Sana'a. I was quite surprised by the defeat there, really. But anyway, we'll get kind of Zarif Mustafa's force back up into Aba, into the Hejaz. join up with this cavalry division, get them some replacements and supplies and this sort of thing, and then go again, I guess. Yeah, they're carrying a limited number of supplies. They should be okay for a fortnight to a month there, I think. And this cavalry division did fairly sterling work, even though it was kind of even when it was defeated, it only lost 600 casualties. It did really good work at whittling this Yemeni force down, kind of almost conducting a bit of a guerrilla sort of campaign. Ironically, we're conducting the guerrilla campaign in a region which has just been declared a protectorate of ours. But anyway, I've been giving some thought to this Kuwait situation as well. I wonder if it's not a clever idea to remove our... Let's have a go at loyalty. Turks, British 21, Rebels 70. I wonder if it might be not a bad idea to remove our cavalry brigade from Kuwait, really with a view of trying to encourage a nationalist revolt. The worry is that not all revolts, sometimes you'll have revolts that are really, they're directed in a particular direction. They're aimed at a particular power, which is likely to be us. But if there is a general revolt which destroys everything in Kuwait, that'll cost us a lot. The consulate will just respawn once we militarily recontrol the region, because it is a protectorate, but it will result in the destruction of the British mission. That might be balanced positive for us, because as I learned last turn, it's the missions that are actually used. I thought the missions were just a generic building, but the missions function as a kind of a conduit, a means by which you can play other cards to achieve greater colonial penetration. And one of the main things that you can do, once you have various structures built like trade posts and these kinds of things, the thing then which you can continuously play is bribing local chiefs. We don't have the means to do that. The British are doing that through their mission. So in a kind of strange, slightly sneaky way, if we militarily abandon, I wonder if we can even, destroy our military outposts. Yeah, we can. This might be balmy, but we're going to move this this cavalry brigade up to Baghdad. Well, it's 9 days. What the hell? We don't need to use riverine points. There's no point in doing that for no reason. And we're going to destroy the military outpost. And the idea is, we want to try and sneakily encourage a colonial revolt there. Now, I can see this backfiring spectacularly. Me sitting here in late January 1863 with half of Iraq, under the control of rebels. But rebels that haven't touched a British mission in Kuwait. But anyway, we're going to try and do that. Play a bit of a sneaky game there. See if we can't create a rebellion that will destroy everything there. We retake it, and we immediately send a mission and begin to develop a trade post and such. Anyway, that's the plan. Right. That's pretty much it. I think that's our military moves played. I have already conducted economic administration for the turn. I'll double check that anyway, because I do like to kind of double check myself, just to make sure that I've not forgotten something, or it's easy to overlook things. It is quite a good game in that, you can pass a turn, and if you overlook something, it's seldom going to be catastrophic, but at the same time, once you kind of, I suppose, it's sort of once you fall into the habit, the routine of just overlooking something and thinking, oh, that doesn't matter too much, you sort of might as well not replay the game, Right, let's just check exports for this turn. That is a record. Look at that. 601 private revenue generated for domestic market sales. That's the most that we've ever generated in a fortnight. That's unbelievable. Let's contrast that with previous years. I mean, domestic market sales in 1859 were averaging around 386. 56 domestic market sales are about 204. Domestic market sales in 51, 232. So yeah, I mean, our economy's, in terms of domestic market sales anyway, has increased threefold since 10, 11 years ago. Incredible. A lot of that growth, I think, is at the end of the 1850s, really, with the development of the railroad, increasing industrialization and this sort of thing. But yeah, the economy really has. It's increased threefold, at least threefold since the beginning of the game. Incredible. Exports, about 1/3 of our domestic market sales in terms of revenue generated, 67 units of goods, 35 imported for 70. That's good. And let's just check. I think I said everything anyway. We have pushed manufactured goods back up to 20. It's always good to have a continuous flow of manufactured goods going out. Yeah, and we are a credible industrial power now, which is absolutely not the case for like the Ottoman Empire during 1861 in real life. I'd be intrigued to look at how many textiles we produce per ton. Structures produce 20 units of textiles. Plus, we've got a textile shop, I forgot that, opening up in Salonika. Structures expenses 3. Unbelievable. Craftsman production is 5. So that's kind of guild-based production. Bear in mind, at the beginning of this period, that would have been our total production. I mean, it might have been slightly higher then, because I think kind of peters out after about 10 years. But yeah, national market sales, 8 units. We want to drive that up even more if we can. Just because we have all of the raw materials to support that industry. And we are a textile heavyweight, no doubt about it. In terms of exporting textiles, let's have a look at the global market. Yeah, the United States, well, no, I mean, we have been surpassed, actually. The United States is 48, North Germany 45. Okay, we should keep a sense of proportion then. Parana, which is Brazil, 15. Okay, well, I'll shut up then. We're only 12. It feels like we're... I guess it's relative. That's the thing with the Ottoman economy. You start off with such a kind of like basket case of an economy that you start, exporting 10 units of something that's manufactured. And you think, oh my God, we're a colossus. But okay, we could certainly do with some more textile mills then. And we should have a bigger piece of that pie, to tell you the truth. I mean... Yeah, if you look at total requested compared to what's available, there is demand for that, constant demand. Yeah, we want a bigger increase to that market share, I think. All right, yeah, so good round, economically, really good round actually. And I've also set for the first time now the export of luxury goods, which we produce some quantity of. And we went from producing no luxury goods at all to now 12 units per fortnight. That's good to see. National market sales 12. Oh, okay, I'll tell you what then. Gotta check that. We'll stop. Well, actually, we've got 5 units. Let's set a little bit of surplus. We've got surplus, so why not? But after that, we will stop because we're basically meeting demand for luxury goods, which is good. Right, that's it. Yeah, so economic admin is done. We have begun the extension of our rail line then southward. The first railroad development really in a couple of years, when you think about it. We kind of paused for a period of time because we wanted to kind of consolidate some of our industry, build some more plant, and really utilize the rail line to build a bit of a, bit of an industrial belt really, especially from Sinop, Ankara, this kind of area here. It's this kind of corner of sort of Anatolia is becoming very developed, industrialized, and then of course Constantinople. And for the first time, we're not being shy. We are looking at Salonika as an industrial candidate city. That doesn't mean that we go hell or high water to defend that. When things get dicey at the end of the 19th, 20th century, early 20th century, this is a place that we absolutely want to defend. Not just because it would have bad national morale loss for losing it, and it damage our prestige and esteem, but now it's an important part of our economy. Really, this whole area is tobacco as well is really important. It's just one of those things, where are we in terms of other kinds of commodities? I've started a thing there. I'm sort of wondering. Tobacco. Okay, so we are the second biggest tobacco exporter. But to be fair, from the first to the second, there is a pretty big drop off. I mean, the Americans are shifting 54 units a fortnight. That's how much tobacco America produces. It's unreal. We're producing 14. But then from us to Brazil, they produce 4, A lot of that will just be technology and efficiency as well. We will develop technologies that will make our plantations more efficient, more refined. So even though we can't really build any more tobacco plantations, unless tobacco is prospected, which is possible. You know, it may be the case that certain kinds of areas are deemed quite fertile ground for tobacco plantations, and I suppose we'll get a notification if that happens. But anyway, economy's looking good. So we're at 553 state revenue now, which is nice. And I wanted that to accumulate because we want to go for another investment in education. We'll wait a little bit because education costs 500 state revenue. It's an expensive thing. You can really do it once a year. We did it last time about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So we'll get up to 600-700 so that once we invest that sort of state revenue in the education system, we'll still have some sort of money left. And the purpose of that is to push up our literacy. Now, our literacy, since the time when we began this game in 1850, has actually gradually declined. And I don't know why that is. That's despite the fact that we have repeatedly invested in education. But that might just be kind of the fact that we're sort of not a very urbanized society. It's very hard to keep track or implement any kind of education. I suppose it's with much more urbanization that you can kind of focus education into kind of inner city areas and stuff like that, where you have greater concentrations of the population. But that has kind of leveled out now around 16, so we see if we can push that up. I think last time we invested, it went up from 16 to 19 or 20 or something like that, but we'll keep an eye on that. Workers still only comprise 16% of the population. I wonder if that's related, actually. That figure is exactly the same, 16%. Well, other classes will be literate, won't they, I suppose. Serviles. We still have slaves. Right. So, I'm going to put you on pause, past turn. We're in late Jan, and we'll see you in, I guess early February. See you on the other side. Okay, welcome back then, early February, and in terms of the round, relatively quiet. No significant sort of battles. There was an additional engagement at Skopje. It looked like it was a breaking engagement. The Austrians pulled back. We sustained 1,200 casualties and inflict 6,000. They still outnumbered us, but they did not fancy that fight anymore. And it looks like now the Austrian force in the west has fallen back to Niš. Yeah, and weather is now tough, especially in northern Bulgaria. We've got heavy snowfall in Sofia also. So there's that. Now, in the east, the Austrians have pressed more forces across the river. They've now got a really large force outside Plevna. Plus, many Army Corps in a reserve. They're really amassing a large force for a big push here. Plus, because they have access rights, of course, to Romania. Excellent. They've only got a small screening force here, but here, under von Benedek, they've got a fairly substantial force assembled. Now, I don't know how much of that is in the field, that is to say, I don't know how much of that is mobile, can be pressed south, but that we need to keep a careful eye on that. I think to that end, we're going to continue the siege of Constanza. The reason being is we have partially breached the structure. We're not going to try and assault it, though. We're going to set to defensive, and we're going to set to retreat if engaged, I think. Or do we just set to defend and retreat? We'll set to defend and retreat. Because it may be the case that the Austrians send this force across in sort of penny packets, So we'll attempt to retreat after 3 rounds of combat. Bear in mind that he can get support from... I should point this out as well. I've switched the commander here. The commander of the Imperial Guard Corps, Ahmed Pasha, has the same seniority. And every time I pass turn, he was the commander, despite being commander of the Imperial Guard. So Abdul Karim Nadir, we've had a change of command, has switched places with Ahmed Pasha. Ahmed Pasha is now in command of this army. Ahmed Pasha is a slightly better commander, or at least a slightly better offensive commander. So we're fairly happy with that change, actually. He's also got a slightly more generous command point allotment. I don't know why. He has the same seniority as Abdul Karim, but Abdul Karim received his commission beforehand, so by the word of the rulebook, this sort of shouldn't happen, so I don't know why it has. Maybe there's something I'm missing. But yeah, I mean, they both have pros and cons. Abdul Karim Nadir has a slightly higher strategic value, slightly better defensive commander. But anyway, it's not like we really have a choice. We've given Abdul Karim Nadir command of the Imperial Guard for the time being. Abdi Pasha is up in Rumelia now, with his entire command. With his entire command, he joins Ritza Pasha. Now, we need to think carefully about what to do here. Yeah. We've got a combined Austrian force at Niche. Do we attempt to push that with Hussein Avni? Hussein Avni of Omar Pasha. He's a 5-day march from Niche. That creates a little bit of space in the west. And then use that elbow room to get him into the action. Because we're going to at some point have to try and... I think probably try and push Plevna. I think that's the idea. With the support of pretty much our entire field command. But we need Omar Pasha's force there also. But I don't want to leave this force. It's recovered some cohesion a little bit. It's Khan Galas. This is basically the force that we've defeated outside Skopje, plus the force which fell back from Salonika, which we would have received some replacements by now. We still hold the fortress at Agosta. They have forces in reserve at Zvornik. Not substantial forces. I mean, they have one Landwehr corps. That's it. Got to think on that for a moment. But yeah, we need to have a think about what to do here. It makes sense to sit tight and try and besiege Constanta. I just don't want to get Hussein Avni's command totally mauled. I guess we just set to retreat if engaged, to tell you the truth. But then what if we're engaged by something daft, something small like an army corps? You know, this force may not attempt to attack across here. This force may be moving south towards Bucharest. What if they send a 1 division, lifts the siege of Constanta for no reason at all? We could sit here and Constanta might eventually surrender, you know. Anyway, think on it. Let's see, rail access to Constanta is blocked because of the siege of Plevna. We should maybe start building railroads in Varna. Don't know what to think. Right, so that's the action there. Anyway, no developments in Egypt. And we're still having supply issues in Cyrenaica. I mean, they're going to struggle to source supplies from Tripoli anyway. Maybe I just send this force temporarily back to Tripoli. I think let's do that. 13 days. We've got the main fleet now in the trade box. We're going to set on a defensive posture. In the trade box, they will sort of gradually accumulate organisation and cohesion. Yeah, we just sit tight in defensive posture for the time being, I think. Not much more we can do than that. We could just join the main fleet. We could just use the main fleet and escort role. So, yeah, and then just break it off if need be, sort of thing. Yeah, we'll just do that. We'll use pretty much our entire fleet, most of our surface fleet anyway, to just escort merchants in the Mediterranean. Hopefully that will resolve our supply issues in Libya. That's it. So we've got Zarif Mustafa sort of defeated Yemeni force. Has kind of fallen back then. We're going to put these guys inside the colonial fortress for the time being. Just to speed up their reorganisation cohesion. They receive replacements readily enough, actually, in Hejaz, but hopefully on this basis we'll be in a position... we'll be in a position to conduct an offensive south if he's activated in the next turn or so. Other than that, we've vacated Q8. Now, there is one other significant development, which is something that we've been thinking about for a while. The moment has arrived. The Dutch are pushing for protectorate status in Sumatra. Now, we have significant colonial penetration here. We are a player in this region. You know, it will be recognised. We have significant commercial interests. This might be our opportunity to try and... Well, we're going to lay a stake. So a stake could cause a political crisis, like a kind of between us and the Dutch. If it comes off and we win, which, you know, if we win, if we manage to get international recognition that our claim is recognised in Sumatra, that would result in us pretty much subsuming Dutch colonial penetration in this region. which would allow us to then make it a protectorate. That would be an absolute unbelievable accomplishment if we pull that off. But let's do it. 75 state revenue plus a diplomat, so a bit of money to grease the wheels. And yeah, we've got 3 shots at this basically. Declare a stake. So 50% chance it triggers a crisis between the owner of the region, or if you are the owner of the nation with the assets in the region that has bad relationships towards you. The decision has a duration of 2 turns and can triggers its effects in the first turn of its use. Yeah, well there we go. I mean, in the last analysis, we didn't spend all that money in Sumatra for no reason. You know, the Dutch are a 5th-rate power, frankly. We're not. So the Dutch have no business having expansive colonial presence as far as we're concerned in Southeast Asia, especially in Islamic places. Absolutely not. It's crazy. And yeah, there is a precedence for it. You know, the Ottomans had trade stations during the time of Selim and Suleiman in Sumatra. So we're just reopening that chapter, really. So yeah, we're laying a stake. Absolutely. See what happens. Right. That's that. I mean, that's in terms of our military moves. Then, what the hell do we do here? I mean, we have to get sort of Omar Pasha back to the east, really. But you've got really heavy snowfall in central and northern Bulgaria. It's like an 11-day march. That's just going to give them time to get replacements. Probably re-besiege Salonika, so we have to break a force off again, you know. It feels like the Russia war, except instead of moving 1 army around, we're moving 4 armies or 5 armies around continuously. And it's not enough. I mean, we've got this force on the run. We've defeated it in the field a number of times. Part of me thinks, you know, let's see what we can get after from taking Niš. For one, you know, we've got significant coal assets there anyway. That buys us the Elba room. That compels that force to fall back up towards Sarajevo. That then gives us the... And we've also got rail access. I think we do it. Let's do it. Alright, we've got Mehmed Vasif, the son of the recently deceased general by the same name. Let's give him command of one of the army corps. Right, let's do this. 5-day march then to Niš. I mean, the Austrian force there is going to be larger than his force, to be sure. But if it, I mean, he's got, look at his combat value. It's crazy. Attack factor of 7. If anyone can do it, it's him. He doesn't have massive reserves. Nothing that can support him within 5 days, I don't think. Let's do this. Purpose of this give their Western command a bloody nose. Force them to fall back. Then let's get Omar Pasha to the east. And he can oversee as the theatre commander whatever plan we develop, really. There's going to be a big... I feel like there's going to be a massive battle brewing in the east. But, yeah, we had the initiative. We haven't lost it. It's just kind of stalemate for the time being. We'll hold Hussein Avni, besieging Constanta. As for the rest of our forces, I don't think there's much else we can do. Might even use the operational pause to break off one of these corps from Mirza Pasha's command, because it requires replacements. 9 days. We'll get inside the fortress. Let's do it. And okay, so we've got artillery. Oh, these transports are finished being instructed now. We can join these. So we've got a total lift capacity now of 92. That's good. It's really good. Okay, let's get the rest of the colonial task force ready for Egypt. Yeah, Would have taken us 48 days to march that instead of the 3 days on by rail. Private capital 1500. Let's look at the next stretch of line, shall we? Latakia. By the thousand Christ, here we go. 675. That's good. Now we have completed a steel furnace in Ankara that churns out 6 units of steel per turn. That brings us down to 22 units of steel in total. Yeah, we're going to have to import steel short term just to kind of really just to top up. We're producing a decent amount of steel, to be fair. We're not dependent on the imports anymore. Yeah, so we'll import 10 units to top that up. Next turn we should have us at 44 units of steel. That's good. That's good enough. Actually, we'll be at 34 next turn anyway. Nah, let's just leave it. Yeah, let's leave it. That's okay. I'm happy with 34 units. As long as we're always hovering around 50 to 60 by the time we lay the next stretch of line, that's fine. Okay. Making really good headway. So the line then, I mean, 330 days for this section to be complete. This will be completed at the same time. And then 360 for the Latakia line. And probably by March, we'll probably have the Beirut Damascus stretch in construction. And then we might as well just push on through Samarra to Jerusalem. And then after that, this will be expensive because it's quite mountainous. Yeah, Tiflis. We have just had the establishment of a town there. Tiflis, Hakkari. Both of these regions are mountainous. Yeah, I mean, we already said it would be like sort of Tiflis, not Tiflis, Bitlis down to Diyarbakir. Yeah. We'll figure it out once we're kind of actually laying it, but anyway. Right, let's check the other reports then. So we are going to continue the offensive in the west. I mean, Omar Pasha has been sat tight for a period of time. In any case, he did engage in a fairly small action on the last turn, albeit in tricky weather. But 5 days march is not excessive. He's going to be up against a sizable force there, led by, I guess, Clan Ganas. But he is an absolute first-rate offensive commander. We need this. Thinking about something to do with some of these volunteer forces we have. We'll keep them in Sofia for the time being. What I might do is send one of these volunteer forces. No, I don't have the rail points at this turn anyway. I think we'll send the Ukrainians to Salonika next turn, just to beef up our fortress at Salonika. One of our conscript forces has been trained. 34, Adipalaya. There's now a regular force. Good. We have got 545, not enough yet to pass the Education Reform Act. Actually looting in the American Civil War is unbelievable. Looting and wholesale pillaging of entire territories. Messy stuff. Now, we did receive some news of some pirates, some Zanzibar pirates, I think. Yemeni pirates. Let's deal with that, shall we? Okay, economically then. Surface it, that looks like another good round. God almighty, 150 acres, 612. Now we're now well into the 600s, aren't we, every single turn? Yeah, 85,278. Good round economically. Let's set our exports. Gotta very quickly check luxury goods again. Yeah, we're basically just meeting demand for those. Alright, that's all good. Let's have a quick look at dyes. Assets balance, everything looks fairly sound. And we've started shifting iron. I think we're exporting iron to the Portuguese, I believe. Yeah, 4 units of iron to Portugal. That's good to see. Yeah, another really good round economically. It's good that it's not just a one-off. We might go back into the 500s at some point, you know. But you can see these are the sort of, you know, you're going to scratch a new mark into the ceiling, and eventually you always return there, kind of thing. Once you're into the, I remember saying this once we hit in the 400s or 300s. I remember the first time, you know, making like 300 on domestic market sales, and it happened once or twice, and then there was nothing for like 6 months, and I mean, you know, eventually we bypassed that completely, but yeah, the economy's doing really well. That's it then. So the real significant things that should happen in the next fortnight is, first of all, a possible crisis triggered with the Dutch. This is a little bit daft, but look, I mean, we don't really have the ability to prosecute any kind of campaign, so it's kind of bluff, really. But the idea is, if we can have some kind of crisis with the Dutch, where we kind of come out on top, first of all, we can score a lot of prestige, and more concretely, we can acquire Sumatra for ourselves. Now, they have no guarantees of, you know, like no one's guaranteeing them or anything. So look at their relations with major powers. That's looking good. We've still got commercial agreements with Britain and France. Really good to see that's held out. That's really benefited our economy. Provide us with consistent kind of export markets, you know. Yeah, exciting this. Let's see what kind of comes of it. Nothing may happen at all. We may have to play it again, but there is always a probability that it will fail, you know. But Must target a region with a colonial penetration of between 15 and 100%. Yeah, excited for what happens here. We'll see. But it'd be, yeah, quite something if we manage to score. So, you know, we could score something really big there in the sort of Southeast Asia, something ahistorical that could really put us on the map. We can't do anything. Nothing for formal colonial status yet. There's a rebellion in Oman. That's disconcerting. Hopefully that doesn't spill over. 48%, 44%, 43%. Oh, just need 2 more percentage points to push for colonial status here. Right, I think that's it then. So we're going to pass turn. Yeah, that's Rita Pasha's core heading back, isn't it? Yeah, we're short an element. It needs to be inside a depot, really. A fortress depot to train up a new regiment of that force, so we'll do that. Okay, so we're in early Feb. We'll put you on pause, pass turn, and pick up in late Feb. See you on the other side. Okay, welcome back then. So it's late February, and let's have a look at developments over the last fortnight. So first of all, there's a battle that's triggered outside Constanta. I can't quite figure out what's happened here because we didn't conduct any kind of offensive. But what appears to have been the case is the Austrians tried to transport, or Austrian supply trains were presumably mistakenly routed through there, or they moved into Constanta with a large force, but they just moved ahead of them for some reason. Anyway, this triggered an engagement, which resulted in some of the fortress garrison getting involved. We inflict 25,000 casualties, it only takes 3,000 casualties. I have an entire garrison of 48,000, which is quite interesting. And if we have a look at the combined force that we managed to achieve there, it's about 180,000. It's pretty decent. That's Hussein Avni, supported by, once again, Abu Karim Nadir. They can't really decide who the commander is here. A bit irritating, this. Apparently it is. Not Abu Karim Nadir. So, yeah, that's a fairly substantial force. There are still massive mixed Austrian forces to the north. But that's not the most ominous looking combat factor. I'm still wondering, I mean, the presence of an Austrian force there does result in breaking the siege. I'm not sure if I feel confident to conduct a counter-offensive. Hussein Avni is coming into his own as a commander now. His stats are increasing, and he is now really quite a capable commander. He's got a lot of experience. He's an aggressive commander. Do we try and clear the ground around Constanta, or, well, there's other developments. We'll have a look at the other battles, first of all. Now, in a real embarrassment, not long after Yemen having been declared an official protectorate, not the colonial capital, but nevertheless the most populous region in the Yemen, has been assaulted by the Yemenis, and they've taken it. It's not the first time they've taken Sana'a, to be fair. It's just an embarrassment that it's happened now. Our force is still not yet in a position to move south. The Marines, especially, that require time for reorganization. So we're going to have to kind of keep them in the colonial fortress in Aba and southern Hejaz for the time being. Really frustrating, this. I would have hoped that transition to protectorate status would have resulted in more kind of concrete changes on the ground. That hasn't come to pass yet. I think we need to engage and defeat this Yemeni force. We're going to have to wait for another fortnight until Mustafa's force is back up to scratch. And then we need to hope that he's kind of activated, that he's prepared to conduct offensive maneuvers thereafter. But frustrating, really frustrating. Just checking the colonial penetration. 43. What's the revolt risk? Not high enough. So yeah, there are supply issues in Cyrenaica, I should mention as well. We got a report, looking through our reports, we get a report this division is out of supplies. I mean, it will be in supply once it lands in Tripoli. That port is not blockaded, and there's a depot there anyway with supplies. So, yeah. So anyway, that's the military report. Now the other engagement, other than losing Sana, which we'll take back, and sure is an engagement at Niš. Of course, Omar Pasha was directed to move north. On the surface, it looks like a defeat, but it's not. It's a pretty sizable victory. 53,000 casualties inflicted, 11,000 casualties taken, plus he takes 11,000 prisoners, destroys 5, 6, 7 regiments completely destroyed in difficult weather. And it's not like his force was in tip-top shape when he moved there. That's a huge success, really, really good. However, in the immediate aftermath of that, his force then succeeds in retreating without being engaged. So in the aftermath of that battle, it looks like large Austrian forces that were concentrating in Wallachia have kind of, and in Plevna have spread out now into kind of central and western Bulgaria, and they've reinforced the position in Niš. So they've created a kind of enclave where they can support and bolster their western position, and they're besieging Sofia. So things are getting interesting. It means that they've weakened their position in the centre. They're not really besieging Plevna anymore. They just have supply trains there. That'll change, of course. They'll have forces move through. So, yeah, this is interesting, and it means that their force is divided. It means that the opportunity exists now for some really effective counterattacks. Not in the short term, however. We need to get our forces kind of concentrated together, at least anyway. My thinking is we need to get Omar Pasha to Plovdiv. It's a 15-day march. We can force march him. It's an 11-day force march. Or we could even try and extend that to... It's 15 days, but once he's there, it means that we have our force concentrated, and we could try and pull back Hussein Avni. That's 4 days into Varna. We get Ahmed Pasha or Abul Karim Nadir, whoever decides is going to be leading the offensive, to clear Varna. That's doable. It's a much more modest force there. That creates the kind of... again, it looks bad because we're kind of all bunched up quite close to Adrianople. And we're not giving up on our Balkan provinces, but it's kind of rather like pushing a coiled spring back. You know, we get our forces concentrated, and then we can unleash really devastating counter-offensives. First of all, clearing the ground around Sofia, securing the territory south of the Danube. So we've lost the initiative again. The boot's now on the other foot. The Austrians are making their move. And again, they have large forces, which they're kind of unleashing. But I think we have to play this carefully. We can't afford to have a command that's acting kind of independently, even if it is under the superlative leadership of Omar Pasha. We need to have it combined, really, with our other field commands, so they can act in unison to deliver, serious defeats on these Austrian forces. So, from this position, first of all, we would look to move 2 commands into Sofia to clear the district, lift the siege. Sofia is relatively safe, I think, for the time being. We've got, of course, a variety of volunteer corps, plus a fairly sizable garrison that's mustered there. I think we do that. We keep Omar Pasha to evade combat, passive posture. We force march him to Rumelia. His force will be exhausted when it gets there. That's a long march, and yeah, in difficult weather as well. I mean, I say that Skopje and Salonika is okay. Plovdiv, heavy snow. Rumelia is okay. Okay, so it's difficult weather in central Bulgaria anyway. I think that's the best move. We hold a defensive posture for the time being. And how large is this force? I mean, when we engaged these transports, we had 180,000. That's a sizable force. See, this list looks really long and ominous, but a lot of this is the support detachments. There's only really a couple of army corps up there. Other than that, it's just endless supply detachments, field gendarmes, so military policemen, prospecting teams, artillery regiments, brigades, just a big mixture of kind of brigades, and it's not like it has a really high combat factor. Why is that? There are a few reserve army corps. Some of those might be damaged though. You can see Guyale up there. Maybe his force is kind of receiving replacements and such. Do we use 4 days and try and get Hussein Avni back to Varna? In Varna, he's in a position... I mean, he's in a position to support a counter-attack into Plevna anyway, from Constanza. It's dicey, this. What's he going up against? 3 regular army corps, a light infantry corps. Yeah, I mean, there's a good 200,000-300,000 Austrians here, and it's going to be... You know, I think we move him back. We are going to be cautious in this case. We'll set him to evade combat. We'll set him to retreat if engaged. We're going to play this carefully. Go for force concentration. Conduct offensives that we know. We choose the, you know, we want to choose the ground that we fight on. And again, on the surface, it looks, you know, it doesn't politically look good because we're in the short term sacrificing territory. We've been here before. You know, we've been here before, and we've absolutely kind of cleared the floor with them. And let's be clear as well. The battle that we're fighting, let's remember, is for the national morale. They're down to 90. Obviously, if they take somewhere like Sofia or Salonika, they will get a big bump in national morale. That's not going to happen. I don't think they're going to take Sofia. I mean, they've given up on the siege of Plevna. They've sort of bypassed Plevna. They're going to struggle to trace supplies. I mean, I suppose that said, they can trace supplies through Niš from Zvornik, I guess. There's a depot there, unfortunately built by us. We should have destroyed that depot, really. We didn't need it. We just built that depot in order to conduct an offensive into Bosnia, anyway. No point crying over spilt milk. But, yeah, they can trace supplies then into Sofia. Got a fairly sizable force there as well. But these forces are divided, you know. They spread their forces out, trying to they're chasing lots of goals at once. If we get really good tight force concentration, we've got these are Romanians. Okay, so we actually do have a Romanian corps being constructed. We've got this reserve. What have we got? Romanians, Landwehr, Ukrainians. Yeah, plus the 3rd Corps from Rita Pasha's command. That's awaiting a replacement element. We're going to go with force concentration here. Force concentration in the sort of Silistrian region, and then we lift the siege of Sofia because that's a priority target. And yeah, then kind of like, you know, we could kind of develop our plans subject to Austrian deployments. We could press a further attack into Niš, or maybe large Austrian forces begin to concentrate sort of either outside of Gosta or Plevna. But with all of our forces combined here, it means that they can't push Varna or Romelia because we've got pretty much an entire field command. Nearly 500,000 men will be based in this region. So they can't press any offensives, and we can conduct localized offensives with a lot of power, a lot of firepower. So that's what we've got to do. That's the combat reports anyway. Let's have a look now. We've got the transport fleet. We've pretty much got the remainder of our colonial task force ready. What if we can deposit it directly into the Sinai? Since there's not a port in Jerusalem. I was planning to land them in Samaria, but we can just actually land them. It's probably a 12 days. In difficult weather. I guarantee they won't make that deadline. But anyway. Yeah, we can. We deposit the force directly into the Sinai then. And that'll be the remainder. That is pretty much then the Egyptian Expeditionary Force. Struggling to source supplies. Don't quite know why. There are supplies in Jerusalem. That said, the Sinai is very undeveloped, so it's going to be a case of, I mean, he's got one supply train partially depleted, we've got another one en route, and then we have to use the supplies he's got until he takes Cairo, which he will be in a position to do. Once he's activated, he'll be able to move through Suez and onto Cairo quite quickly, I think. That's it, that's the Egyptian situation, and there's nothing else to add to that, really. We've got a brigade just re-securing the interior. Once that's done, we'll move into Sulum and Gazala and do some sort of scouting. Military outpost. I wonder if in Tobruk we build a fortress and I don't know, what do we do? So we've got a harbour at exit point to the Gulf of Gabez. Blockaded. See, I can't see any Austrian forces, any Austrian naval forces in the trade box. What is that? Russia's landing forces in Tunisia, are they? Nothing too worrying, just a few divisions. That's interesting. It may have actually been an accident. It may have been that they were sort of stopping off or they had some supply issues or something, but I don't know what that is about. War score 0 with Austria. What if they take a white piece? We have no claimed regions, they have no colonies. We don't intend to liberate anything, so... Yeah, we won't offer a white piece just yet. Okay, that's pretty much it for North Africa anyway. The expeditionary force, if our transport fleet makes its deadline, they're constantly behind at the moment because of difficult weather, then we'll have, yeah, we'll pretty much have the rest of our force in the Sinai ready to move. Still don't have the colonial penetration of the Gulf, and Algiers is a long-term prospect for that. And yeah, we need another fortnight at the colonial fort in Abba. And we've played our stakes, we've laid a stake, we've contested the Dutch. The kind of Dutch attempt to turn Sumatra into a protectorate. We've got another turn yet, we'll see what happens. No news in it, nothing in the reports. So we'll pass the turn, and we'll probably make, like next turn will be early March, we'll leave it there then, I think. So the Mediterranean maritime trade is transporting 180 transport points. Its maximum is 180, which its maximum should be much more than that because we've got a pretty big mercantile presence. So that suggests that some of it is being, our trade is being kind of interfered with. So the Austrians must have something in here. Let's set an offensive posture. And let's break off. What is going on here? Right, that's more like it. So we've got the merchants with a bit of an escort, and we've got the main fleet under Mustafa set an offensive. Right, so we're going to seek out, spend a fortnight trying to seek out Austrian ships that are blocking our any kind of maritime access that we have. One other development is the Austrians have declared war in Serbia. So, as a part of their kind of ongoing plan to completely redraw the Balkans by the looks of it. I guess it's going to open up a little bit of maneuver room for them, gives them a supply base if they take Belgrade. So, I mean, like, it's not really a huge concern for us, I don't think, to tell you the truth. The other thing, of course, is if they take Belgrade, they may get national morale from that. That's the only thing as well to consider. It's a kind of quite a smart move if they can take Belgrade. I mean, Belgrade is not like, you know, it's not like Montenegro. I mean, it's a fortified city with a garrison, so we'll see if they can pull that off. But anyway, right. Let's check the economy really quickly over the last fortnight. Yeah, 158 for 605. Exports 360. 92 units of goods. Imports 35 for 70. Another really, really good round. One thing I am going to do is to close off luxury goods exports for the time being. Okay, that looks pretty decent. Good stuff. We're going to temporarily stop imports of canned goods, preserved foods rather. Current stock 59. Okay, yeah, so we'll close that off for a period of time. It's something that is readily available on the international market. There's no real shortage of preserved foods, but we have kind of plenty for the time being. We've got steel, manufactured goods. We are going to import, I think, 5 units of steel from, let's have a look, from Mexico. Why not? It's a place where we kind of guarantee there's no real competition. That's good. Right, fine. I think that's export set. I'll have another quick look through. Yeah, happy with that. I'm going to really quickly check what our tobacco consumption is on the domestic market. We actually sell 10 units. Happy with that. Okay, so yeah, Austrian declaration of war on Serbia. That's the only really significant development on the international stage, and this time next term, we should have a resolution to the Sumatra crisis, unless the stake is ignored. I don't think it will be. I mean, this should all go in our favour. Bear in mind that we're the great power. You know, we're like ranked 5 in terms of prestige. We're one of the big players. We have a pretty legitimate claim. We've spent years investing in this region. We didn't do that for no reason. We absolutely didn't do that so that the Dutch can make it their colony, or protectorate, which is a halfway house to a colony. So we should get some recognition for this stake, and if we don't, we've got 2 diplomats who'll press it again, and we'll keep doing it. And you know, we're going to make a noise until something happens about that, I think. Right, that's it. I think that's everything. Check out assets balance again very quickly. Yeah, happy with that. No problems there at all. So we're going to put you on pause then, and pass turn, and late February, so I'll see you in early March, and I think we'll leave the recording in early March, so we'll see what happens, get a resolution to the Sumatra crisis, and then, yeah, and then leave it there. See you on the other side. Okay, welcome back then, early March, and yeah, interesting round. It looks like Hussein Avni was not able to get out of Constanta. We probably should have set him to just evade combat, frankly. So he was engaged in a pretty sizable engagement. It looks like he's done quite well on the surface. Let's just have a look at the garrison. It's still besieged, but it's intact. I mean, in retrospect, I should have got him to hold at all costs. I can't even... Oh, there we go. So they've actually managed to sneak forces into the garrison, into the fortress in Constanta. So that's quite interesting. The losses he took, however, were really heavy. We lose the national morale for it. It is a defeat because he breaks contact. It's a quite bewildering action looking at it, trying to kind of figure out what happened. So after 3 rounds of combat, he breaks contact because he's not clearly winning. We had about 180,000 men against 162,000. We destroy. Looking at this, it looks like it was an artillery duel-themed engagement. Heavy losses on guns on both sides, which is interesting. Don't see that often. 2 of the elements that they lose are our field artillery regiments. We lose 1. On the surface, it's kind of a victory because we inflict heavier casualties. We inflict, nearly 50,000. We take 34,000. They take 1,000 prisoners as well. But yeah, I mean, Hussein Abdi basically breaks contact after 3 rounds, and he does suffer heavy losses. We are going to put him back though. So that's the first engagement. We lose a national morale for it. There's a second engagement where he just fails for whatever reason. This is how forces kind of get trapped. It's not really done strategically by enveloping tiles. They become trapped sort of in the kind of the sort of tactical part of the battle, if you like. It's not something that you really control. So he becomes kind of trapped in Constanta. He can't get out. And we lose 2 elements. It's a victory, but again, this looks more like a defeat. 13,000 casualties. We inflict 11,000. And he loses a couple of elements here. So I think this time around we are going to pull him out, even though we did better than I thought we would do there. And the Austrians sort of had less than I thought they would in total, really. I think once we're getting force concentration built up, that could be an avenue for a counter-attack there. But anyway, we're going to get him this time to properly evade combat, passive posture. He's going to get out of dodge into Varna. How long to Rumelia? 9 days. How long to Constanta? 11. Let's do it. 80% chance force march. We'll go for that as well. He's going to do everything he can, use speed and maneuver. We did a really, really big march with Omar Pasha. He is now in Rumelia. He's kind of okay. He doesn't require a lot of replacements, but he does require a period of time for reorganization. We're actually going to deposit his force into the town at Rumelia. We'll set it to a defensive posture, but good. Yeah, so that's it. Not really a great round militarily. They don't get lots of national morale or anything. They're only at 92, so we're still winning. And the idea is for us to kind of regain our composure, get our forces concentrated, and then look to move. Looks like the Austrians try to utilize some of the captured railroad in Sofia. I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know where they're moving to. Maybe they're moving back to Niš, and they just embarked or something. I don't know. But yeah. Can't quite make sense of that. They moved a force north then to besiege Belgrade, and the Serbians have actually moved north and captured Slavonia. That's interesting. Hopefully the Serbians have just bogged them down on a bit of a guerrilla war in this area. That'd be really helpful for us. Right, yeah. What we'll do is we're going to leave this and look at what to do next turn. I don't think there's going to be any offensives. I mean, there could be. We've got an activated Abdi Pasha, for example. There's options. What forces of the Austrians got here? I mean, they are still besieging. Sofia, we're going to have to think about it. Transport fleet running well behind schedule. Unbelievable. It's now going to take them 12 days. It was going to take them 12 days 14 days ago. Benghazi is still blockaded, so we're actually going to move the main fleet. And we're going to set the main fleet outside Benghazi just to reconnoiter, see what's going on. There aren't any Austrian forces in the trade box spotted in the last analysis. I mean, even if we're not engaging them, we should be able to see if they're looking to kind of try to interdict our sort of are merchants, and they're not. So I think that there's actually just undetected Egyptian or Austrian forces sitting off the coast of Cyrenaica. So we're going to do the same. We're going to set our main fleet there, see what happens. That's it. I think the rest of the reports we're going to look through when we pick up next turn. The one thing that hasn't happened is there's been no crisis with development. So our attempt to kind of force the issue, if you like, the first Sumatra crisis has kind of fallen flat. We haven't got much interest on the world stage. We'll push again. It's a shame we've had to play it twice. It's expense. Another diplomat also. We're not going to let it lie. Sometimes it can happen. It doesn't. It just falls flat. I think it's a 50-50 chance, that comes off. And when it comes off, it's not guaranteed. It can then possibly trigger a crisis where you actually have to try and really win the kind of, if you like, the concert of nations over to your cause in the fashion of a kind of crisis. That might not happen, though. It may just be that the Dutch pull their attempt to conversion this time. They might just sort of back out. Or they might put it also to a kind of diplomatic conference, like an international crisis. Then we play for big stakes. That's the purpose, really, of investing into Sumatra. Is that it is like a game of cards. It's like you're investing. You're kind of you're upping your bet. And that's what we're doing with these stakes. We're upping our bet. We're putting resources on the line. But the net result could be, if it all goes our way, we end up bagging Sumatra. We get loads of prestige from it as well. The Dutch are humiliated, and we would basically be able to convert Sumatra into a protectorate straight away, if it all goes to plan. I think it's never happened to me, though. That's never happened, but it feels like a worthwhile exercise. Something definitely worthwhile doing with our resources. Sumatra's a resource-rich region. It's absolutely a place that we'd want to have as a colony of the Ottoman Empire. Tobacco, timber, tea, dyes, oil for the future. Yeah, this would increase our tobacco production. This would be really, really good. So, anyway, it's an option. But it fell flat this time round. So the first Sumatran crisis is over. The second one begins in early March. I'm going to leave the video there because a bit fatigued, quite tired. So I think I want to, before I make any more moves, it's probably also about a 5-hour video already. I want to have a bit of time to think about how things are unfolding. Again, this looks much more alarming than it really is. These are massive Austrian forces. They've kind of dissipated their forces, which will allow us to defeat them in detail, which is what we hope to do. And we're really just preparing the ground. We're getting our forces bunched up together and, looking to kind of unleash them in what's going to be a big spring offensive, I think. That's also the case with Egypt. Supplies don't look good in Egypt. I don't really understand why they're struggling to source supplies. We're basically working through more supplies. What have we got? The current stock is 116. Usage per turn is 54. So we've basically got a month's worth of supplies left. And I guess we can't source them from Jerusalem because of the undeveloped character of Sinai. Although in 3 turns, that's 6 weeks, we'll have roads. We began the construction of roads there some months ago, you'll recall. And they're not cheap, actually. Roads is 50 state revenue, plus 50 private capital, plus, 5 manufactured goods. It's not a cheap thing. And it takes time, so anyway. Yeah, we'll leave it there in early March, and we'll pick up also in early March. So, entering into the spring, now winter's coming to a close, and we're going to be looking at... it's going to be a lively year in the Balkan Peninsula. Austrians still got some fight in them. We don't want to take Belgrade. If we can lend any kind of assistance to the Serbs, we will, because of course that undermines our war plan, which is all about kind of hitting their national morale. Belgrade at a stroke might give them 10 national morale, something like that. But I feel good about this year. I think the spring and the summer is going to be lively, and I think it's going to be a string of victories. Their forces are divided, they're in manageable pockets, even where they got a lot of concentration. Like in sort of Silistria up here, they had about 250,000 forces, troops. So I think the war is taking a toll on the Austrians. It feels like, they still have a larger army than we, but, we're whittling them down. Their combat power is now 342. National morale is 92. Yeah, we're heading in the right direction. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Pick up early March. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.